Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Terra Invicta guide video with another 10 tips that are making my second playthrough, which we're doing on Twitch right now, which you can see here, way easier than my first one, that I would have liked to know before I got into the game myself. And let's start with tip number 1. And that is pressing N gives you a lot of information about these little icons here on the left that are information pop-ups about what is happening in the world. If you don't press N, you have to click them one by one to see that pop-up. But if you press N, all the information about them is given instantaneously to you, and you can see them and what each of them means. And you don't have to click them individually. So that is quite helpful to see what is going on the world on a glance. It's still a bit annoying that there's so much text, so most of the time I don't have them activated, but with one little mouse button you can let them pop up. The second one, which also increases readability of the game a lot and gives you the information on an easier level, is in the options setting. There's an option in the gameplay part to show you income monthly. And as most costs in the game are shown as monthly as well, this is super helpful to understand where your economy is. In the base settings, it's put up as daily, and daily is just not that great when all the costs are shown to you as monthly. This way you know how much research you do monthly, how much boost you do monthly, and so on, which is a way better indicator, a way better way to display these numbers in my eyes than the daily one you have in the vanilla setting. Another one is that when it comes to agents and their missions, in the turns between the setup of how they get triggered is indicated by this little button down here. For example, Inspire missions get activated first, and the higher the number, the later these things get triggered. This one is 4 is the second to last. A public campaign, for example, happens before setting national policy, and Control Nation happens in the latest part of the turns. So you can boost always Public Nation before Control Nation happens, so you can kind of chain things, which is especially helpful with the Crackdown. The Crackdown feature, which is on 3, and the Purge feature, which is on 5. So that you can crack down a spot in a nation and then purge it in the same turn, and it always triggers in that direction as well. So yeah, it's a bit risky because if your crackdown fails, then your purge chances are still pretty low. But this way you can secure that nobody else can swoop in and also try a purge on that spot you crack down in that turn. So I recommend going for the crackdown purge thing, and yeah, having an eye on these 1 to 5 little dots down here indicating the turn order of these missions. Then the next thing also on your agents is that administration is super important and super powerful, because it means you can swoop up more organizations. And each organization usually has more impact than any single other point you could spend. And the cost of them is up here. So 1-star one, for example, this one here, gives us better unity, gives us more missions that we can do, public campaign, and gives us income of influence as well. And that is more impactful than, for example, 1 level of persuasion. So maxing out on administration so you can gobble up the best corporations at the moment is super good. Maybe they will do a rebalance of it eventually, as it feels at the moment like corporations are super impactful and super strong for the price they cost. I would say they should stay as impactful, but maybe the prices of them need to go up a bit, because at the moment you really want to max out as soon as possible. As you can see, a lot of my agents, even though we're not that deep into the game yet, already have maxed out or are closing in on maxing out. Only this one here hasn't done so just yet, because here I wanted a persuasion specialist. I went with a lot of persuasion for this one, but from now on out I will go with administration as well. Also, yeah, try to go for administration. If you don't level up, they always try to gobble up the administration organizations as well, as they will allow you to take more organizations afterwards then, as it levels up the administration part. So, for example, this one gives us income plus administration. It doesn't have any negative effect, and it allows us then to take these two here, for example, as well, and go closer to the maximum of 15 organizations. Later on, you can still swap them around if you don't like your base loadout on your agents, but taking them early on is just really, really powerful. Then, tip number 5 is that economy boosting and economy leveling up is not the same, it doesn't have the same impact everywhere. As for example, here in India, the GDP per capita per level of economic growth is $11.2, whilst if we do that same in Pakistan, per capita growth is only $5. So economy boosting in nations like India is way more impactful than in Pakistan. As first of all, we have way more people, so the per capita increase also means way more GDP because the multiplier is different, and then the per capita multiplier is already double here with 11 versus 5 point something. In the EU, for example, it is here $9, so still pretty good. And also, with the higher GDP per capita you get, usually the lower the impact on what you get out of it with activation points, investment points goes lower as well. So investment economy, especially in developing nations, is really powerful. China and India really, really strong with it. China, I think, has $10. So, or $11 as well, yeah. So China and India really, really strong on the economy. Other nations not so much. So maybe something you should have an eye on as well, considering in which nations you want to boost the GDP and which nations you want to do other things in. As obviously, every point invested into the economy is something that you don't spend into something else at the same time. And then the next one is that also these control points don't just give you don't just differentiate in this administration one giving you the power of the nation and then the military you can see that they give you, but they also have individual effects depending on what kind of control points they are. For example, the religion point in India gives you a bonus in favor of your faction whenever a unity point has been created here. So whenever a unity mission here or priority is pushed through, you get a bonus to your public influence on this nation when you have this control point. So for example, if you want to get control over India, this might be more worthwhile taking over than these two at the beginning, because you easily then can boost unity, get more influence over India for your faction, then can take these over easier afterwards as well. Similar thing in China, where I think it's, yeah, this one that we control here as well with the initiative allows you easier crackdown. So something you should have an eye on as well, because with easier crackdown, you obviously can easier break into the other ones and take them over easier as well later on. So another nice little feature that is not really explained, but yeah, you should have an eye on for which one does which. And yeah, let's move on to the next one, which is that researchers don't just only give you a boost to if you take off the global researchers, it doesn't just give you a boost to what you can choose next. It doesn't just give you that power, but it also gives you an advantage over everyone else if you are the one that boosts it the most when it comes to chance of getting access to that research, to the researchers, to the private researchers it enables. For example, if you get this one, then the rockets that get available with it, you have a 30% higher chance of getting that each month available. So it's quite important if you want to go for critical research for your faction to be the highest one investing into it, not just be able to control where humanity is researching next, but also to get the extra researchers out of it a bit quicker maybe than the competition. And let's move on into space, as the next one was super impactful for my first playthrough and was the one thing that nearly saved me there, though I failed in the end. And that is Mercury and Venus are really, really good for bases, for space station, because solar energy there is obviously way more impactful than on Earth. On Venus, it's double. It's The solar arrays on Earth give you 42 energy, on Venus they give you 80, and on Mercury it's times 5. A solar array on Mercury gives you 280 energy, so one single solar array easily can power a whole space station, meaning that building space stations that need a lot of energy around Mercury is way more efficient than building them around Earth or even further out. And something that I used a lot for getting my mission control in space up there, building shipyards and so on around Mercury. And if I wouldn't have messed up on Earth itself, that would have allowed me to tackle the aliens in space pretty efficiently. So getting space stations around Mercury is a really, really strong thing. And on the other side, something I did in this playthrough, even though I had a little boost, I was able to gobble up 2 of the best stations, or the ones I wanted the most at least, on Mars, before everyone else got here with more than 1 station, because I didn't build a mining station on the moon. I'm building them right now, but I skipped that part to get the best 2 stations on Mars that I then later can on exploiting with mining stations. If you do a bit better than I did in this playthrough, you could even go for more. I just mess up quite heavily when it comes to boost in this playthrough. But if you have the mission control, it can be absolutely more worthwhile gobbling up the best Mars stations before you build mining stations, because mining stations are really expensive, but later on you will have the boost, and then you will need the stations, as space stations also don't change controller that much in the early and mid game. So if you don't get them early on, taking them later on is a lot more of a hassle, needing you to either get your agents up to Mars or fight on Mars, which then leads to atrocities or could piss off the aliens if it's one of the alien factions that you have to attack. So I highly recommend, if you have the available mission control at that point, try to get as many stations on Mars as possible first, and then build the mining when you get more boost online later on. And then the last, number 10, is a bit of a spoiler about the win conditions in the game. And that is, if you want to, there's only one faction that can win next to other factions. All the other factions, if one of them wins, the others automatically lose. So the only faction that can win, and then someone else can win as well, which also makes sense, is Project Exodus. If Project Exodus fulfills their win condition, the others still can win. But if any other of the factions fulfills their win condition, they have won the game. So even though you might have similar goals between Resistance and Humanity First, if Resistance fulfills their win condition before you as Humanity First, the game is still over for you. So have that in your mind. You still don't want to have your somewhat friendly factions to get there before you. So have that in mind when you play. And with that, I hope you will have a more successful playthrough. I'm on my way here as well. And if you want to watch me playing through, check my channel out on Twitch. And if you want to see more Terra Invicta content here, consider leaving a like and a subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next one. Have a great day, and bye-bye.